Hi there, and welcome to this episode of Nocturnal Transmission with Ryan Kerr. In this episode, HIV is greater than COVID. We're going to talk about the comparison between HIV and COVID from a personal as well as a professional standpoint, because my interviewee is Muluba Habanyama, a wonderful, smart, beautiful, strong person that has been living with HIV since she was born and now works in the field herself. And sometimes works with me too. So buckle up. It's a wonderful journey as I talk to Muluba on Valentine's Day about how HIV is greater than COVID. Eee. Hi, Muluba.
Hi, Ryan. How are you?
I'm great. Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day, boo. I'm so glad to be here.
Oh, I'm glad to have you. You're one of my favorite people. And I do say that publicly and not as much privately. So I'll try to say it more privately as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're wearing red. I've got like my signature bow tie, but yeah, you're dressed for the day.
Look at us. We're kind of matching.
How you been? So you live alone and like me, and it's a Valentine's Day, so it's Singles Awareness Day.
Yes. I live alone and I live in a basement apartment. So I also don't have like those huge windows. So I've been okay. I think when COVID first hit in March, I was like, oh, this is sweet. I get to work from home, schedule my own hours, I was an introvert. I was like, I don't even like people. But I thought it would be over by September 2020. So when September came, I was like, hold on, what's going on? And now with the second wave and this quarantine lockdown, I'm like, it's getting a little lonely, but I tried to stay in communication with people like we are now.
Yeah, I definitely had a different attitude. I was like, this lockdown's going to be horrible. It's going to be the worst. Then there was like a part in the middle when I was like, it's not so bad. But now we're back in it's the worst for me. So that's nice.
Yeah.
At least
because you're more of an extrovert than me.
I am. Yeah. And it took me a long time to realize that.
Really?
I was in... People who know me are like, but it really was hard for me because I was like, no, you don't need anybody. You don't need people. You don't need stuff. You just have them, and that's great. And then I was like, if I don't see a person for, I don't know, a period of time, when you get hangry and you want to you want to attack and murder people or yourself, I get like isolation hangry. Where if I don't actually interact, I would go jogging, and if I made eye contact with somebody while I was jogging, I would be like, oh, that's better.
Oh, I know. It is that bad. And now it's cold outside and all that. So I'm like, I just wish I don't even drink, but I'm like, I want to go to a bar with my friends just for the experience. I'm like, there's so much I missed out on.
I definitely have a very, very, very full liquor cabinet, and I don't recommend it. It doesn't always do what we want it to do.
Yeah, I have a cabinet with substances too. Marijuana, maybe.
All those
enjoy.
Things. Well, we have our favorites, don't we?
Yes, exactly. It's legal.
It is. Welcome. Yeah, welcome to all that.
Confirming.
So I wanted to invite you to my podcast from the moment that I had the opportunity to have a podcast. And so, of course, my first version of Nocturnal Transmission was the Instagram Live. And you were one of the most popular guests of that show. You came on a live version. People went crazy for our conversation. And then you started your own podcast called The Muluba Show.
Yes.
How is that going?
The Muluba Show, it is going so great. And I do have to say, I'm so proud of you with your Instagram Live. You started it right when lockdown started, and I would see Ryan Kerr's live, and I'm like, oh, Ryan must be bored. He must be lonely. I'm like, let me see what he's doing. But you really interacted with people and really garnered an audience. And I'm so proud of you that you stayed committed to that and that you've extended it into a podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah, I started the podcast, I think, in around May. I've been talking about a podcast for years, but really I was like, well, I need like Spotify or somebody to sponsor me and give me a podcast. And I think just in, the quarantine, I was like, oh, make your own show. Yeah. And so I made my own show, named it after me, the Muluba Show.
Well,
and
it's a catchy name.
It's unique. Yes. And we interview different people about different topics, but it's also a relatable show. And we took a little hiatus that was first planned and then afterwards not planned, and just kind of had to be a hiatus. But I'm excited that I will be coming back. Yeah.
Well, when you're not paid to do something, then if you need to take a little hiatus, so be it. So
exactly, and especially when you have to, when you're doing everything by yourself.
Yes.
Like even if I could just record, because that's my skill, interviewing.
Yes.
And then when I have to edit, I'm like, oh, man.
So the Muluba Show is pretty great. I haven't been a guest on it, so it's not excellent yet.
Not yet.
But I'm sure that could happen.
But season 2 is coming, agent. And we have some topics.
I always think the second season is best.
Pardon?
I always think the second season is best. You're on my first season.
It is best, because the first season is like low budget, right? The company never gives you enough money. It's like the pilot. They don't think yet. So second season's when you get bougie with it, for sure.
Well, you're on the first season of my show, so whoops.
Well, and this is a trial run. This is the most exciting part, because then you just kind of get to do what you do, and then you get an audience for it, and then you're inspired to do more.
I love this. And I also, the thing that I really like about you is that you always say yes to me. So I have a feeling that you'll be in the second season too. So a lot of people that have been tuning into this version of Nocturnal Transmission were never on Instagram. And so they don't know how rad you are. So I'm going to start telling people how rad you are, and then you jump in and correct me or like embellish, okay?
Okay.
Okay, great.
I'm good at embellishing.
Okay, great. So Muluba came to Canada when she was very young with her family. Correct? Okay.
Correct.
Okay, great. And had a lovely life. Childhood. Great. Okay. Fine.
So. I would say so.
Okay.
But
okay. Well.
I won't complain. It was an interesting childhood, let me say.
And then partway through, you found out that you were HIV positive.
Yes, quite early on. So I actually found out I was positive like around 4 or 5 years old.
Oh, I thought it was later. Okay. So that
No.
So that might have accounted for the so parts of the childhood?
Yes, yeah. And all that goes into that, learning what HIV is and kind of that turbulence, and then, of course, Googling what HIV is and seeing a whole different, factor of what the doctors told you. So it was interesting. And it was, my mom and my sister, we went to Canada because my dad was abusive. And so there was that whole factor. And it was just, it was interesting. And being an immigrant and watching my mom do all the tests and stuff was, but now you're looking back and you're like, damn, everything kind of led to this moment, I guess.
Well, I can't imagine what that would be like, but I can see from how you turned out that you really have taken kind of this life experience that you have and really turned it on its ear. And I think, it's amazing that you are gorgeous and supporting yourself in your basement apartment. That's like a tick box. But there's so many things that you have done. And I think specifically around HIV, which I find the most inspirational part, is that when you decided that you wanted to come out of the closet, as I call it, because I'm also gay, so coming out of the closet, I related to HIV disclosure. When you decided you were, hiding, when you revealed your status, you did it in a very public way.
Yes. Growing up with HIV, I knew from the year that I was 5 years old, had been going to appointments, getting blood work, taking medications for all those years. And I just thought, there's no way I could disclose to people one by one. I hadn't told my best friends or anything like that. The
Wow.
only people that really knew was my doctors and my sister, obviously, because we grew up together. And so I was ready to disclose my status. I was in journalism school. I felt like I had a voice. I felt like if I want to interview other people, I want to tell them my story too. But I was just like, I can't tell people one by one by one. It's going to get so exhausting. It's like ripping off a bandage 100 times. So I made a YouTube video called Feel No Shame.
Wow.
And I put on the pink lipstick that I thought was cute and this wig that I thought was cute. And I went into my bathroom because it had the best lighting in my studio apartment at the time. And
how old were
I posted, I was 21.
21, okay.
I was 21. And I posted, and of course, like the outpouring support happened.
So hold on. So you're in your bathroom. I just want to go there. Because you've hidden the video now, right?
I changed my mind. It goes on and off.
It goes on and off. Okay, so it may or may not be accessible to people on YouTube.
I will make it public so you can tell the listeners.
Well, it's pretty fantastic. But you're in your bathroom and you just say, "Hello world, my name is Muluba Habanyama and I'm HIV positive."
Yes. I think so. I don't even remember. I haven't watched that video probably since I was 21.
I watched it more recently, but not like yesterday. But
yes, but something, along those things. I said I'm a lot of things, and I'm HIV positive, and I was really convinced to like make it strong. But I also, in the middle of it, I realized I was getting vulnerable, and I cried a little bit, and it was this growth moment that I cannot explain. I didn't tell anybody I was doing it. I just did it.
Amazing.
And posted it. And I did, before it was fully uploaded and published, I did tell my sister. I was just like, you might get a little bit of questions, so don't be surprised. And it was just, but I remember I posted it and I like shut off my computer and everything and put on The Simpsons on TV.
Yep.
And was just like, okay, we're zoning out right now. We're not going to pay attention. And my sister called me and was kind of telling me the comments it was getting on like the video and on Facebook. She was just like, this person said this. Like, she's like, I just want you to know people are supporting you,
Oh, that's fabulous. And you put it on Facebook, on your own Facebook as well?
Yes, I put it on Facebook, either as a video or like I linked it, but it was amazing. And the reason why I private that video is one, sometimes I'm like, oh, I did cry, like I feel so protective of that 21-year-old because she really didn't know, if she would have any socialization after that. She didn't know about the HIV community in the Ontario.
Wow.
But also, people noticed right away I was in my bathroom on my toilet. I thought it wasn't noticeable. I really thought I could be able to tell. They're like, we can tell you're in your toilet. Like the bathroom. Oh, and the pink lipstick I was wearing, Ryan, I don't know what I was thinking. It is not for Black people. I'm sorry. It looks so bubblegum pink. I look cute. And the wig was shifted and it was like tangled. And so I just look back and I'm like, oh, when you look back at 21, all the things.
Like, that is hysterical. That is hysterical. And absolutely the mind of a 21-year-old that's like, but who is...
I look cute. People won't notice.
I mean, first of all, you do look cute. And second of all, the message is so, I'm sure people were so overwhelmed by it that those who really care about you were probably like, holy sugar.
Yeah.
And then the haters they're always going to hate. I think about that. About 5 people a week watch this video version and the rest listen. Yeah. And I'm just like, oh, what if they see that my shirt is wrinkly? But I disabled comments.
Oh, yeah. Sometimes you need to do that for your health. I'm telling you. Yeah. Sometimes you just need to back away. Even with, I have to pace myself because I have become this advocate and very public about my status and kind of doing these, events and socialization about HIV because I want to break down the stigma.
Yes.
And I want to up, that we could all end HIV together. But sometimes I will get DMs
Okay.
that are just evil. And sometimes I'll get DMs with somebody who's like newly diagnosed and just outpouring. And I really have to make myself in that headspace where I can be, because I have to check in with myself as well. And I think all activists do. How do you take care of yourself?
Yes. And I mean, that was going to be a question, but I will get to it because I wanted to say sort of the next process. And thank you for retelling that story. I'm sure you've told that story 100 million times, but I just want to hear it again. So how did you end up? So now you work in HIV. So you went to journalism school. So you are a journalist. Yes. And you did some work. So you were also featured as a result of this video. You were featured on, was it VH1 or Much Music? I saw profiles of you all over the place about you being a rad lady.
Yeah, I can't even really remember. Oh, it was MTV.
MTV. I think it was MTV. MTV. Sorry, that's what I meant.
Yeah, I got to write for MTV, which was
amazing.
An amazing experience. Yeah, and that was early on, like after I disclosed, kind of like 6 months later, and it was kind of like, how do you feel about disclosing and how I told the world? And really also from that video, like people found me and also were reminding me like, hey, there are organizations that can support you. You know, I was so used to my children's organization that kicked me out when I was 18 that I was like, okay, I'm alone now. I got to thug it out. Right. That's it. And finding out that there's support organizations, but then also chances to advocate and people could hear in my voice that I wanted to tell people about this and really break down the stigma and help us end HIV.
Now, HIV, we both know, is a virus and it doesn't discriminate.
Yes.
But people do a lot. When you started looking to organizations, HIV organizations, to support you or to sort of find a community, I'm a gay man and I'm white, and a lot of organizations cater to me. A lot of people living with HIV look like me, and organizations have kind of come up from, the bottom with a very like gay, sexy, male standpoint.
Yeah.
What was it like for you to kind of look for your own community? Because there can be a lot of racism and stigma from even within those organizations, when they look at a young woman who is Black, they're like, not that HIV.
Right. Not that HIV. I do have to say, so when I went to my children's organization and I turned 18, they gave me like, I guess, a few pamphlets to places. Okay. And I went into one organization in, downtown Toronto, and I walked in kind of just to like register, like get intake. And I was seeing penises on the walls and all the pamphlets. I was like, oh, you're really out there. I was like, I don't know if this is for me. And, I think that, like you said, there's discrimination all across the board of people who think there's certain people that have HIV. And then even within the sector, I think we both know that there can be that still that separation and still that segregation. So I was in situations where it didn't feel like I belonged because I was Black, anti-Blackness, or because I was a woman, and because I was somebody that was born with HIV. I think it was, I went to a long-term survivors group, and it kind of like, I almost got quizzed, like, how are you a long-term survivor? What have you done? And it was like, and I think the person said, I lost all my friends to this virus and stuff like that. And I said, yeah, like, I lost my parents. Like, I guess he was saying I didn't have that experience. And I'm like, but this isn't a competition of like, who's a better long-term survivor or how that works. And yeah, it's interesting.
I mean, interesting is one word for it. I mean, it just sounds hideous. It sounds horrible.
Yeah, it was horrible, and there could be instances like that. But you find your people, and I think there has been like some great organizations that are tailored to Black people or to women. So I'm kind of like, okay, let me go in there. Even sometimes the organizations with women, I'll feel like, oh, those are my aunties and mothers that are just telling me what to do. And you're kind of equipped to find your home. And I have to say, there were a lot of youth that I found that also turned 18 and kind of were lost in transition or didn't feel like they had a place. So it almost felt like we built a social group together. And then you just find your people, you know, like you said, me and you are very different. You're a gay white man.
Hello.
And I'm a hello, and I'm a heterosexual Black woman. But I think that we just jive so well, you know. So sometimes you just find your people and it clicks. And I think I've always had that belief. And if I don't click with somebody, it's not the end of the world, and it's not something that has to occupy my brain.
You know, it's what I always hear when you speak is just this overwhelming amount of inner strength, because while it's true, everything that you're saying is absolutely true, and you can read about it in like affirmation books that you might read on the toilet. It takes an enormous amount of personal strength to be able to implement that kind of thing, especially when we're talking about something so close. You know, HIV is so stigmatized that, you know, to me, it's like it's right up there with my sexuality when I think about being a very core part of not necessarily what defines me, but what defines me to other people.
Right.
So, you know, my gayness might not be the reason why I do certain things or enjoy certain things or whatever, but people may perceive me that way. And I feel like when we're talking about, you know, the way that you're casually talking about, you know, you go to some organization, they reject me. That's fine. There's somewhere else.
Yeah.
It's a lot harder than that. And I know it is. And I'm just so impressed with how someone can navigate things as well as you have. And I just, you know, just more praise, just throwing it at you.
Thank you. And I think, especially in the moment, it's definitely horrible. I'm not like, oh, whatever, brush it off. But there has been times, unfortunately, that I can say, you know, being a female got me into trouble, or, you know, I got discrimination for that. My Blackness, you know, is still a big problem, and you never know when you walk into. And I had moments of, you know, especially, you know, 21 to now, I'm almost 28. Hopefully I can have a 28th birthday party in May, but COVID needs to calm down. But like just seeing that growth. But there were times where I would tone down my Blackness, you know, kind of have a tone to it where it's like, I mean, bitch, look at you, right? You are Black. And I would tone down this part of me and that part. And I kind of became a martyr for the HIV community, and kind of became like, this is my civil duty. This is my story. I just have to give my life to this cause. And a friend told me when they visited me in the hospital one day, like, you can say no, and you don't need to give an explanation. Just no. Okay, like, it was just, and that friend happened to be Ryan. And I think that's been something I'm working on, but I've definitely gotten better in that, you know, sometimes you do have to watch if something serves you and try to live a fulfilling life yourself. You know, I have goals personally for me. I want to have kids. I want to, you know, have a talk show. And it's important because another thing I've learned, being an HIV activist, you can kind of be the face for the cause, but they will use you and use you and use you if you just let them, you know?
Yeah. That guy, Ryan, sounds amazing.
He
sounds really great. And I will say, you know, do as I say, don't do as I do.
Yes, exactly. Because you tend to as well.
Yeah, I say yes a lot. Although, you know, I'm working on it. I think COVID has been really helpful because, you know, and helpful in bunny ears, because it's taken away some of the extra energy. You know, like I feel like I have to work harder to get work done because I have to focus more, because I'm literally sitting in my kitchen working, so I could be eating instead.
Yeah.
And so I'm finding that I don't have as much energy. Like I don't have as, you know, I don't have, like I almost only wrote about 50 Christmas cards this year instead of my usual 100. So you can just imagine.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's just been a really down.
I think I read 12 or 15. But
That's still more
you
than
probably have,
most, I've learned. No, but
yeah.
joking aside, I think that having this COVID has forced me to really prioritize myself,
Yes.
and so that is helping me to say no, and because I actually don't feel like I have the reserves in the way that I used to.
Right.
But while we're talking about our friend COVID, have you noticed some similarities between the way we as a society are treating people who are potentially getting COVID or stigmatizing them, and the way people stigmatize people living with HIV?
Hmm. Yes, absolutely. It was so interesting. I mean, first when COVID came around, I think us in Canada were kind of like, oh, it's not really going to come here and all that, and then is just seeing the similarities and the differences. Whereas now we're starting to see people. I think I saw like a few months ago a man got arrested for potentially passing on COVID. So I'm like, oh, now this is a whole criminalization thing. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
people make the victim feel bad and punish them. It is also interesting that it seems like we're taking charge on COVID. And then when you look back, I wasn't born in the 80s, but looking back, it was like something that was ignored because it was a gay disease. Or if you're like in Africa, it was a black disease. So it was
Mm-hmm.
like, it doesn't really matter. And for years and years, we're just letting people die. Young people that had so much more to give to life. And that's disappointing. And sometimes I do wonder when I'm seeing people, not that I'm saying, treat COVID just the same as you treated HIV, but I'm like, it's so interesting that HIV is like contracted or can be contracted by sex, breast milk, needles, and like COVID can just be like if someone coughs on you, and we seem to have more sympathy. But then when you go back, it was things that were rooted in racism and homophobia and
Yeah.
things like that. So I think with COVID, of course, there were a lot of racism happening towards the Chinese. So there's definitely those similarities and those differences, and it's interesting because working in the sector as you do too, we're dealing with two pandemics or two things we're
Yes.
trying to end.
Yeah.
I know we had a goal of ending HIV by 2025 and all that, and it's like we're gonna match with COVID, so
Yeah.
it's very interesting. Yeah.
Well, and just to build on what you were saying too about the undesirables, it does seem like the same people are undesirable, and I would add poor people to that list, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Um, and I think what we're seeing certainly in Ontario is that the number of cases are highest amongst people that are in the sort of working poor level because they can't take a day
Yes.
off work, and
Right.
a lot of those workers are racialized. So
Exactly.
we're seeing a very similar trend. Homeless people are 5 times more likely to have COVID, and that accounts for a lot
Mhm.
of people who use drugs. And then we have when we have people who are immigrants from other countries who are trying to get their foot in the Canadian door, and they are
Yeah.
at risk because they can't. A friend of mine, he got COVID, and he went home. He probably got COVID from his roommate because he has 5 roommates in his tiny
Oh
apartment,
wow.
and
Okay.
there's no room for him to isolate or his roommates to isolate. So 3 out of 5
Right.
of his housemates got COVID, and then as soon as they could get back to work, they had to, like, as soon as they were allowed, because they couldn't afford to not work. They didn't have any protections or sick days, and those are the people that are really suffering. Whereas you and I, I mean, I have bigger windows than you have,
That's
but
true.
we both have our own places.
Yes,
So we can.
we both have our own places and have jobs where we do have sick time or
Yes.
vacation time and
Yes, which is
kind of that time
wonderful.
to take off, and that shows the amount, and it shows the amount of privilege that we have. But it's also like, why should this be a privilege? This should be
Yes.
like a right for everybody,
Yeah.
um and that's something I can sing for the days on. But you're right, it's showing that it's more affecting people that are disproportionately
Mm-hmm.
um treated. So it's it's embarrassing and it's a disappointment, and I think that's what goes with wearing the masks or doing the isolations. Sometimes it's not just for you who has your own apartment and is doing that. It is for the greater good of all of us.
Yeah. I have a hard time when people don't want to wear masks because, I mean, I don't wear a mask most of the time because I'm at home in my apartment, but I don't have a problem wearing a mask, you know, entering a business, or because I think about other people before myself. And I wonder if, you know, I wonder if one of the many sort of harsh consequences of COVID is this rise of individualism, because we're not interacting with people as much. So then all of a sudden our needs, you know, there's a fine line between prioritizing yourself and making yourself better, you know, than everybody. And I wonder if I hope that we're not in that realm where suddenly our own personal health and safety expands to be screw everyone else.
Yes, exactly. The most important. I hope not either, but there's definitely traces of that happening.
So in terms of like moving forward, what do you think is going to be, what do you think is one of the ways that HIV work is going to have to move in order to tackle both COVID and HIV?
Oh, that's a loaded question.
Thank you.
We need to get in. We need to get it. The policymakers, everyone, get them at a round table. I think, you know, part of me is flabbergasted by it all still. And a part of me, you know, does have this plan that, you know, the medical officer of health would have to approve. But I would say, I think we're going to be wearing masks for about 3 years now. So I would say people give it up on trying to protest the masks. There is much more that there could be protested about.
Yeah.
And I think we need to gradually, you know, get into the world. I mean, clubs aren't going to be open anytime soon. So I should give that up. You should give that up right now. But we need to get access to the vaccines for those who want it. Hopefully a lot of you, and for those, and testing, get access to COVID testing, make sure people can get access to supplies. You know, it was so interesting when back in March, they're talking about PPE and everybody should be wearing a mask. And I was kind of like, okay, are volunteers going on the street, you know, giving homeless people masks? Like, what are going on? Is there going to be a place for them to go? So we need to make sure, like, even those individuals, like when they kind of said masks, they just assumed all of us to have money and buy masks.
Yeah, just to go out and buy just like an endless supply. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So I think things like that, we really have to help each other as a community. Yeah. And there's going to be a lot of COVID research coming, I bet.
Yeah.
And then with HIV, that seems a little, you know, I think COVID, I'm like, oh, just do this and this, and it might not even work. But with HIV, it's such a long game because this has been something, you know, from the 80s and as a pandemic. I think, again, access to testing, which there was like a slew in access to testing, like just going to a pharmacy and walk-in testing. But because of COVID, that has slowed down, or is more like by appointment only. So that's been non-accessible.
Well, and same with testing centers, and like HIV programming has all been shifted to online.
Yes, yeah. And that's I will say, like, I'm part of a group, and we have to do like the programs over Zoom. And sometimes I'm like, oh, I've been working all day on Zoom. On meetings. I just think I can't do it right now. I'm not gonna have the energy.
Yes.
But I think, so like the access to testing. And again, Ontario is a place that, you know, our BC has a universal healthcare coverage, and Ontario does not. So making sure there's access to medications, you know, it's very complicated. And making sure, and with access to medications for treatment, access to medications for prevention. You know, people do wonder how you pay for PrEP, and there's programs to do that, but really getting that access out there. We need to really do our prevention work, and then make sure that people living with HIV are treated, because as we know, Ryan and I plan to live a long time and still be podcasting to you guys when we're 90.
And we'll just take turns, so you don't have to listen to both podcasts. We'll just take turns having each other as guests.
Exactly. Yes. Same guest.
My viewers' time and your viewers' time. We don't have to.
Yes, yeah, and we'll be a little bit older and kind of like already retired, so we'll want to have some time for ourselves, so we can go like I'll do bi-weekly and you'll do the other bi-weekly, so we'll cover it for sure. We have a plan, and I think we have to make sure people with HIV are treated and we have that treatment so they can live life and live a long life. And my main thing is I love the idea of research. I love research. I've been involved, with HIV research in some cases, and I just love the idea of research. I've done that a lot in journalism. So you have to research your subject. Yes. But I do tell researchers, specifically HIV researchers or health researchers, don't let this be something that sits on the shelf.
Right.
Or don't let this be something that you just present at a conference and it never gets implemented. This needs to go to organizations. This needs to get implemented to actually help the people. Because then you'll do this whole research and give people a $20 honorarium and all that, and it doesn't really benefit anybody's life except for the researcher, which I'm like, go ahead. I want you to get your certificate. I want you to do well. But, you're going to feel better once it gets implemented. Okay?
Get your name on that lanyard.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Yeah. Go ahead. Do your thing.
I think, everything that you said, obviously it resonates with me. And we now work for the same organization, which is amazing. Yes. Although we haven't really shared the same space for almost a year now, thanks to COVID. I know. Isn't that crazy?
Listeners need to know Ryan was like right behind me. Like we had our coworker in the middle, and then Ryan was right there, and it was a ball.
I liked printing things where I photoshopped your head onto different objects.
Yes, you put my head onto a bird.
I did.
And I think you put me in a nightclub or something. Well, that might have been my boss.
No, it's hard to say. I took a poster that you were in for an ad campaign and I switched it so that you were in the center.
Oh, yes. Yeah,
which meant putting you on a shorter, very hairy man's body.
Yes, that was I think carrying a knife or something. It was really hilarious. Yes, Ryan would do great things like that with our work time, but it was so great. We had such a blast. We got to sometimes we'd go to lunch together and all that, and now it's very different. Which, like I said, when the pandemic first happened, I was like, I'll see you when I see you. Yeah, this is only going to last 6 months.
I can't imagine I'm like, I know, I can't imagine you missing me, like tapping you on the shoulder and saying, here's your face today.
Here's your face today. This is it.
So, it is Valentine's today, although the episode isn't going to go up for a couple of days. So, everybody, you are watching something from the past. Ooh. And listening.
Ooh.
What are you most looking forward to in 2021?
Oh, wow. In 2021, there just seems to be so much possibilities, so much optimism. I don't feel like, I feel like the whole thing we're going through COVID, like you explained, we're kind of all going through this together, and put yourself in somebody else's shoes. So I don't feel like I'm like, oh, I can't wait for all this to end. Whether or not it ends, I'm still going to do my thing, Yes. So I have so much stuff planned. My podcast is coming back. I want to write some articles. I'm turning 28 this year, which is exciting. I love growing older. I think, every year is a blessing. I'm excited to communicate with family, but I think what I'm most looking forward to is just like being fulfilled and being happy. I don't have anything planned. It's not like I can tell you there's a big trip.
There's no big trip on the horizon.
Yes, there's no big trip, but I am just excited for what's to come.
That's a really great answer. I mean, you have family. Your sister lives nearby, right? And have you been able to see your family? Like you've been able to see your sister and your nephew?
Yes, but I feel like the last time was December.
So a little while ago, yeah.
It has been a while, yes. Yeah. So every year we're all everybody's going through it. So yeah, we're all making sacrifices in different ways, and it just is what it is.
Well, I hope that the Muluba show, which I'm sure is getting, I mean, you have a lot of international guests on your show, which is really cool.
I do. And look out for season 2 because we have more international guests. And we might have a little Ryan Seeker. I love your Instagram handle, by the way.
Thank
you.
How
you changed it.
Thank you.
I'm like, that's smart.
Thanks.
But I want to ask you, what are you looking forward to in 2021?
The journalist Muluba comes out. You know, I think you're the first person to ask me that this year.
Ooh. Well, I had to throw it back at you.
I know, I'm feeling a bit emotional. I think I'm looking forward to being stronger. I think that there were a lot of experiences from this past year that have made, I'd like to think of it as adding tools to my toolbox.
Yes.
And the second and the 1.5 lockdown and the second lockdown, and I'm sure our next lockdown, there's going to be, everyone feels different, and I think they feel different because of I'm starting to trust myself a little bit more, that there's certain things that I really can handle and things that I didn't think that I'd be able to handle on my own, for example. So I think I'm looking forward to this new, potentially stronger, smarter me, making headway in certain things in my life. I'm very excited about this podcast because I feel like I'm learning so much more about people, and also getting a chance to share, a message which I think is largely positive with people.
Right.
And I think the world needs that. And I'd like to make more money.
Oh, yes.
I keep
look
having
forward to
dreams
that.
of that.
Yes.
I don't know if it's a sign or not, but I did pass a sign that said $25 million in the lottery.
The lifestyle that I have, or that I dream of for myself, doesn't see myself in a 1-bedroom apartment, doesn't see myself like I'm meant to be rich, so I just feel like it's gonna come.
I see that for you. I do see that for you.
Thank you.
And I just hope that I can visit,
absolutely.
Maybe at that point there'll be a body scanner or something, and so I'll walk through and I'll be like, look, I'm COVID free, and then I can swim in your pool or use your sauna.
Oh yes, I have to get a sauna.
That's
you. That's amazing. Yeah, I kind of taught myself how to swim last year. During the whole COVID thing. I couldn't swim for 27 years. So I was teaching myself, and I kind of know how to swim. I know how to get places, but I don't know how to tread water. So if I just stay in a spot, I'm gone.
You know what? That sounds like a bit of a life mantra. I know how to get places, but I don't know how to tread water.
Oh, yes. And that actually does explain me. I know I'm go, but sometimes when I'm just told to stop, I'm like, what? Then what's the use of me?
I'm with you.
I have to learn.
Yet another thing we have in common. Muluba, I love you. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm just gonna expect you to be on the next season of this show, whenever that is. And I mean, I guess my invite to be on your show is in the mail.
Yes, absolutely it is. Expecting it soon. Canada Post is kind of running, a little long delays with that. But
so much volume.
Yes, and I'm so proud of you again.
Thank you. I'm very proud of you too. I can't believe I've known you now for a couple of years, and we've had many opportunities to share employment and volunteering and activism, and this is yet another way that we can work together, and I adore it. And I adore you.
Yes.
So lots of love. Have a fabulous day.
Lots of love, listeners. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at It's Muluba, and subscribe to my podcast, The Muluba Show. We're coming back soon, and we might have a special guest named Ryan Seeker.
And I'm gonna put your links in the description as well.
Thank you.
Bye, Muluba.
Bye, Ryan. Thank you again.
Thank you so much for listening. As mentioned in this episode, Muluba has an incredible podcast called The Muluba Show, which is found wherever podcasts are found. And she said she'd make her YouTube video live, so you never know. I'm sure you could find it by Googling Muluba, Muluba. That's all for now. Have a fabulous day. Bye.